You'll listen here to clips of a conversation between two critical care survivors. They are talking some months after their experience, and they describe their hallucinations and their dreams, and how sometimes these dreams reflected something of reality, sometimes they were completely disconnected, but they have been a lasting memory and source of confusion for them in their recovery.
I was trying to think were there noises that really interrupted my dreams, on a regular basis. And the only one that I really connect, apart from the water being next to water all the time because of the bed moving, the one that it was either a background noise or I was being shot at, and that was constant volleys of gunshot. And I believe that was off the later on, I was sort of trying to connect up which noises were it. And I'm fairly certain that was from the nurses when they tore off those plastic aprons. The of the unrolling a apron, and it translated into a gunshot in my dreams. I had one that really baffled me for a long time, and I often dreamt about moths that would then eat items of clothing, but these particular moths had one bright luminous orange wing and one sort of dull mouse's back sort of color wing. And it was only later when I'd sort of woken up properly that I realized I'd been dreaming about the blood thinner injection, because it had a bright orange tag and a grey tag on it.
How do you know that? How do you know about those?
Well, I only made that sort of connection much later. My mum, many years ago, had bought me the most beautiful cashmere coat, that goes almost to your feet. The sort of Peaky Blinder number. And it was a stunning coat. And obviously, within one of my dreams, I'd tried it on, and it had been completely eaten by moths. My mum died 2 years after I came out of ICU, and I remember just because I'd assumed that this was the reality of this coat, I'd never got it back out of the wardrobe. I was so gutted that that's what had happened to it. I pull it out of the wardrobe and it's perfectly okay. Okay, it's got a couple of tiny little holes in it, but it was perfectly okay. And I wore it for her funeral. And I still, to this day, am baffled. I'm confused that a tiny little moment that I really believe was true was completely false.
Yes.
And I've got so many of those little moments that I really question the past.
I didn't have any of my family in my dreams at all.
Right.
There were 3 people that I knew. 2 appeared together, and it was to do with whiskey.
Okay.
And in retrospect, I know. Well, it's a bit like the arrivals scene in the hospital. That was, in retrospect, I can tell it was part of the hospital because of the way everything was set out.
Yeah.
But I finished up in this sort of working men's club type railway terminus, helicopter air rescue base in Wales, up in the Brecons. Because the Brecons is fair game because we used to go up there a lot. And they were having this whiskey tasting.
Right.
My 2 friends, who were also really keen on whiskey, wouldn't have anything to do with me. And I had difficulty in moving because I had 4 legs. Well, of course, the 4 legs were my 2 legs and 2 tubes.
Yeah.
And I was wearing some strange skirt, which didn't help movement either. And so I couldn't actually physically move from where I was. And it actually was one of the more distressing hallucinations because they just wouldn't have anything to do with me. And then something just goes off from there. I'm a drainage engineer inspecting the canals and swimming underwater. There's a lot of swimming underwater.
A lot of water. I think that's the beds. I think because the beds are constantly moving. I was around water all the time, either struggling to get out of it or crossing it or on it in some way, you know.
These nightmares, memories, distortions, hallucinations are really common for those who have been unwell on critical care. We share these so you understand you are not alone and that it will take quite some time to process that experience.